Today is Saturday, August 5th. Summer always brings warmth, but this year has been historic, even record-setting in many areas. Millions of people across America and the world have been under heat alerts, experiencing heat waves that aren't just uncomfortable, but also dangerous. Heat is actually the top weather-related killer in the U.S. each year. So what can be done about it at home, in our communities, and within the government? Today, I'm chatting about all of that with the director of Duke University's Heat Policy Innovation Hub, Dr. Ashley Ward. She brings together scientists and community leaders to develop policy solutions that reduce the impacts of extreme heat with the goal of keeping people safe and healthy. She's here to share everything from quick tips to cool off fast, even when the power is out, to when we might even see some areas in the U.S. become uninhabitable because of the heat. All of this as our heat waves get hotter, longer, and are not likely to let up anytime soon. Welcome to the Newsworthy Special Edition Saturday, when we sit down with a different expert or celebrity every Saturday to talk about something in the news. Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for our regular episodes, where we provide all the day's news in 10 minutes. I'm Erica Mandy. It's now time for today's Special Edition Saturday. Dr. Ashley Ward, thank you so much for coming on the Newsworthy.
Thanks for having me.
So, being in the news, we see hurricanes and tornadoes a lot. They get a lot of attention. But according to stats from the National Weather Service, heat is actually the deadliest type of extreme weather. Why do you think that the impact and even the deadly aspect of heat is not talked about more or as much as other natural disasters? And I guess, would you call it kind of a silent killer in a way?
I think that we have a real misperception of heat risk, and that comes from a lot of different things. I am a person who grew up in the southern part of the country, and heat is just something we dealt with on a regular basis. But what people aren't recognizing is the heat that we're experiencing now is not the heat that our grandparents experienced. And one major difference is persistently high overnight temperatures. So one of the big changes we see with climate change is not only those extreme daytime temperatures like we're seeing right now in the Southwest, but in many parts of the country, particularly in the eastern part of the country, we're seeing overnight temperatures that don't fall below 80 degrees sometimes. So this means that the body doesn't have an opportunity to recover from any kind of exposure during the day. And it's not just our bodies, it's animals and plants and every living thing that are impacted by these persistently high overnight temperatures.
And yet, you've said based on your research that this summer in 2023 might be the coolest summer for the rest of our lives. Can you say more about that?
There is a change that is happening in our environment, and this has been growing over time. It didn't just suddenly happen this heat season, though this one is certainly extreme. But every heat season has been, for the most part, worse than the prior one. And not only the length of heat season, but the severity of heat seasons. And that is what we're talking about when we talk about climate change. Those shoulder seasons, they're called, in the early spring and in the fall, where we had that transition period, those are going away. And we're going from a winter season directly into a heat season. Earlier this year, we had unseasonably warm April and May. This is why planning and preparedness around heat is so important. The resources that have to be marshaled for local leadership to deal with, say, a 3 to 5 day heat wave with respect to cooling centers or sheltering where it's needed or giving people other supplies, that is an enormous undertaking, even at that 3 to 5 day heat wave kind of event. Imagine what's happening right now in the southwestern part of the U.S., where they're on, I think, day 31 of triple digits. So the resources that are having to be marshaled and just the draw on local resources and energy to do this is incredible. And so it's important then that we incorporate heat into our hazard mitigation planning, just like we do for every other disaster event. But the truth is, it is going to take an effort from the federal government all the way down to local agencies to address this issue in the way that it can save the most lives.
Is there any good news you've seen or points of progress that you can point out?
So first, I want to say that state level and local level planners are doing a fantastic job. They have recognized that heat is a big issue in their community, and many of them are working very hard to try and incorporate heat action plans and heat into their hazard mitigation planning. There is no doubt that heat has captured our attention sufficiently this season. The agencies that need to be paying attention are paying attention. President Biden had a presidential address on heat, the first time I've ever seen it discussed from the presidential podium. We have money that is going out through the IIJA and IRA to help communities develop and fund heat mitigation projects. And we have organizations like FEMA and HUD really sort of entering the space here and saying, look, this is a priority. The military has prioritized heat. They understand its connection to military readiness and how it interrupts training and the safety and security of soldiers. We are seeing people paying attention to heat at the level at which it's needed. We just need action now from Congress to back up that interest.
Do you predict that in the future there will be places in America or elsewhere that are uninhabitable because of the heat?
Without a doubt. I think it's likely we're going to see these changes happen within the next decade. But we also need to think about this aspect with heat. Heat doesn't just affect us, our human bodies. It affects our growing patterns and where we can grow food and where we have access to water to grow that food. Heat has an enormous impact on labor, billions of dollars every year in labor loss. So there's an enormous economic consequence to heat. Equally as disturbing to me about where humans can actually live, because we can, go into air condition if we were able to, right? But we're also talking about how we grow food. And my guess is there are going to be many parts of the world in which we have depended upon for feeding the world that will no longer be able to do so.
Including parts of the U.S.?
Yes, I think so. Mm-hmm.
Still ahead, you may feel fine because your air conditioning is going strong. But what happens if the power goes out? Ashley Ward explains how to prepare now. Plus, we talk about the early symptoms of heat exhaustion to watch out for and the steps to take right away that don't require AC. That and more coming up. But first, a quick break for our sponsors. First, thanks to AG1, the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health. I drink it every day now because I now feel more sustained energy throughout my day since starting it. I can also tell it supports gut health, and I appreciate that it's supporting my immune system too. We're talking 75 high-quality vitamins, probiotics, and whole food-sourced ingredients. I drink AG1 as part of my morning routine before I really get going and start my day. It's easy to put in a to-go cup while I have to run around with my toddler or make breakfast for him. And it makes me feel like I'm also doing something for myself and for my body. It's so easy to make with one scoop mixed with ice water. I personally like a splash of lemon. And in that moment, I have started the day on the right foot. And yes, I have tried a bunch of different supplements, but I love that AG1 is one solution to support whole body health. So if you are looking for a similar effective investment for your health, try AG1 and get 5 free AG1 travel packs and a free 1-year supply of vitamin D with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/newsworthy. That's drinkag1.com/newsworthy. Check it out. This episode is also brought to you by ZocDoc. While I do think Google and social media can be helpful resources for gathering information and having good questions to ask, I definitely do not think they should be your go-to places for medical information and diagnoses. They can cause unnecessary anxiety and, to be honest, have questionable sources as so-called experts. So when I really need to know what's going on with my health or my family's health, I turn to trusted professionals with the credentials in that specific area instead of random people on the internet. And ZocDoc offers a great way to find some of those actual experts that are nearby, available, and take your insurance. Yes, ZocDoc is the only free app that lets you find and book doctors who are patient-reviewed, take your insurance, are available when you need them, and treat almost every condition under the sun. No more scouring the internet for unclear and conflicting answers. Join the millions of people already using this free app. Go to ZocDoc.com/newsworthy and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today. Many are available within 24 hours. That's ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to our conversation. Let's talk more about who is most vulnerable during these heat waves. And I guess that could mean rural versus urban, older populations, maybe minority populations. What are you seeing?
I think it's important that people understand that everyone is vulnerable to heat. How you are vulnerable and the magnitude of that vulnerability does change based on a variety of circumstances. So people who have chronic illnesses, certainly people who are over 65, they often have those chronic illnesses in addition to age that they're dealing with. People who work who work in jobs in which they're exposed. And I'm not just talking about outdoor workers. I think I want to be really specific about that because, particularly in the southern part of the country, there's an awful lot of people who work in manufacturing, and inside of manufacturing facilities can get significantly hot during the day. Student athletes, pregnant women. But I think it's important for people to understand that even if you don't fall in those categories, you are still at risk because a healthy 50-year-old person could be mowing their grass in the afternoon and be overcome by heat.
And do you think there's some stigma of like needing help when you're in the heat? What do you see when it comes to how people respond to some of those first symptoms?
This is a really good question. I think a lot of times what we see are people don't recognize what the symptoms are. And as they progress, one of the things, particularly what I call chronic heat exposure, which means we're not talking about an acute heat wave event. We're talking about everyday chronic high heat during heat season. So people get a little bit lulled by that, right? They think, oh, it's just summer, but they tend to not recognize the symptoms that their body is struggling to regulate their body temperature, like excess sweating and muscle cramps, or feeling a little bit dizzy, or having a headache, or nausea. And so these are early warning signs that the body is struggling to regulate the body temperature. I mean, of course, if someone becomes confused or loses consciousness or their body temperature really elevates, I mean, that's when you want to call 911. And I think a lot of times what happens is people don't recognize the early symptoms until they're actually in real crisis mode. And at those early stages, there's lots of interventions that people can take that can help their body regulate their body temperature and save themselves from perhaps some of the worst health outcomes.
Top 2 or 3 interventions to do right away?
Well, I mean, certainly you hear everybody talking about air conditioning, and that's a good one. But there's also a cool shower for 10 minutes. We know lowers the body's temperature. It doesn't need an air conditioning to run, and it's easy to do. If you can't get in the shower, immerse your feet or your arms over the elbows in cool water. Also very effective at lowering your body temperature. Whenever you get out of the shower or from immersing your arms or feet, sit in front of a fan if you can. And certainly if you're outside and you can douse your clothes in cool water about every hour, that can also help regulate body temperature.
And I'm just curious, can electrolytes make a difference? Like taking in an electrolyte drink as soon as you notice those symptoms and or leading up to any heat exposure?
I'm not a physician, but what physicians do say is that water is typically the best option unless you're doing really heavy exertional work like an athlete. But I will also say one little caveat with water. Once you start sweating, water is not an effective mechanism to lower your core body temperature. Once you start sweating, it's better to use water externally in the ways I just described rather than internally.
What's your take on air conditioning and its importance or not?
We have to understand that air conditioning is a life-saving intervention. Particularly in some parts of the country, we're seeing where the temperatures are reaching such a level that without air conditioning, a person cannot maintain a safe indoor environment for their home. So the fans are not going to work after a certain point. And so we do need to be thinking about where that's occurring and try to help those who need air conditioning get air conditioning or afford the air conditioning they have. At the same time, we can understand that it's unrealistic to think we're going to air condition the world. Air conditioning comes with its other challenges like its draw on the energy grid. And, it does certainly release heat into the urban environment when everybody's running their air condition.
And so what happens when not only someone may not have air conditioning in the first place, but also what we see often is power grids get overwhelmed and the power's cut out, or for whatever reason, the power goes out and the air conditioning we thought we had is now not an option.
A friend of mine was in D.C. not long ago, and they had a power outage. And she was lucky enough to have a basement, so they were able to go down into the basement where it's much cooler. But it occurred to her they had no way to move air. And so she was investing in battery-operated fans, she said, so for the next time. So I think one thing that I would say to individuals is where you can, wherever is possible, think about how you would cool yourself down without power. Locating in your community places that you can go Some people have suggested people go to the mall or to grocery stores or libraries and cooling centers. And this works really great in an urban environment, but it's much more difficult in a rural environment where it may not be convenient to go to any of those things. So what I would encourage is in rural communities, places like churches and civic organizations like Ruatan clubs and other kinds of community centers, having them think about serving this purpose for their communities and developing an action plan to open up and serve their community during these periods.
And I know your focus is really public health and how we can handle this extreme heat. But what does the science say at this point about what's triggering these worsening and more frequent heat waves?
Certainly. I mean, right now, what we're experiencing is an El Nino season. And so El Nino is certainly adding to the severity and length of this heat season. But truthfully, this is part of climate change. And until we reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, this is what global warming looks like. And so that means that while we may have extreme years like this year, it's not as if it's ever going to go back to the way it was 30 years ago. We've passed that point now.
Final thought for our audience about the heat.
Check on your neighbors. Be smart. Don't think that you can handle it on your own. And, if you've always mowed your grass at 3 p.m, consider changing your habits and mowing at 9 a.m. or much later in the evening. So really think about changing our behaviors and checking on each other and taking care of each other. Communities are really important with the issue of heat.
Well, thank you so much to Dr. Ashley Ward for sharing all of her insights. Again, she directs the Heat Policy Innovation Hub at Duke University's Nicholas Institute for Energy, Environment, and Sustainability. So be sure to check out their website to learn more about this increasingly important topic. And of course, thank you for making the Newsworthy part of your regular listening lineup. Tune in every weekday as well for our daily news roundups, where we get you up to speed on the day's headlines in about 10 minutes. So we'll be back to catch you up on all the news you need on Monday. Until then, have a great weekend.